All right, ready for a deep dive. We're
Yeah.
going deep into the world of Zhuangzi. He's one of those ancient Chinese philosophers, it's still so relevant.
Absolutely.
We're talking about life, death, happiness, big questions. And Zhuangzi had a unique way of tackling them, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. Totally unique. Forget your regular philosophy with all the, strict rules and doctrines. Zhuangzi, he's all about stories.
Right.
Fables, vivid images, that's his jam.
Yeah, not every day you open a philosophy book and bam, there's a talking skull.
Right, or a giant bird that could, block out the sun.
Exactly, just casual reading material, right?
Exactly. But that was his genius. He called them weighty words, these stories that make you really think, Like a good fable burrows into your brain and makes you re-examine everything.
It's a totally different vibe from someone like Confucius. Confucius was all about those clear rules, social order.
Yeah, very much the opposite of Zhuangzi.
Zhuangzi was like, hey, what if we look beyond those rigid structures?
What if there's a different way to be free, to be happy?
Exactly. And you can't forget the context here. We're talking ancient China, warring states, period.
Right, a time of massive upheaval, chaos, violence everywhere.
You can practically see him looking around like, there's got to be a better way to live.
Exactly. And while other philosophers were trying to reinforce those power structures, maintain order,
Right, keep things as they were.
Zhuangzi's over here saying, hold on, what if those hierarchies are the problem?
Yeah, he was a real disruptor. So before we go any further, let's get our listeners situated. The text we're looking at today, it's not just straight from Zhuangzi himself.
Yeah, it gets a bit tricky there.
It's a collection of his writings and also, we think, writings from his followers.
Which makes it tricky even for, seasoned scholars to figure out who wrote what, like a philosophical jigsaw puzzle.
But that's why we're here, to help make sense of it all. So let's get into some of Zhuangzi's big ideas. One of the most central ones, Wu-Tis, the equality of all things. So Wu-Tis, the equality of all things. It's a pretty radical idea when you think about it, even now. Is he saying, like, a blade of grass is as valuable as a human being?
Well, it's not really about ranking things as more or less valuable, more like he's saying everything's connected. Everything has its own part to play in the grand scheme of things.
Okay, so it's not about saying one thing is better than another.
Right, exactly. You've got someone like Mencius around the same time, big Confucian thinker, saying humans are at the top, right, top of the heap. And Zhuangzi comes along and says, hold on a minute.
He's challenging that whole hierarchy.
Exactly. He's saying a blade of grass, a mountain, a person, we're all just expressions of the Tao, that natural order of the universe.
I see. So it's about recognizing the inherent worth of everything, no matter where it falls on our human-made ladder of importance.
Right. And don't you think that's something we could use a little more of these days?
Oh, absolutely. We're obsessed with comparing everything, ranking everything, like
Yeah.
it's all a giant competition.
Exactly. Social media followers, the best brand of coffee.
Like our worth depends on being better than someone else.
And Zhuangzi would probably say, what if you just stop doing that? What if you just appreciated each thing for what it is? Imagine how freeing that would be.
Right. To just be present with things
Yeah.
without that constant need to judge.
Exactly. It's about finding contentment in just being, not in being better.
It's like he's urging us to step outside of our own anxieties and remember that we're part of something much bigger. Which actually leads us to another one of his big ideas, wu-wei, often translated as non-action.
Yeah, this is where people get tripped up.
Because they picture Zhuangzi's followers just like, lying around all day doing nothing.
Right, total inaction. But that's not quite it, is it?
Not at all.
It's more about aligning yourself with the Tao, with the flow of nature.
Acting in a way that's effortless.
Yes. Effortless and in harmony with how things are.
So how do we actually grasp that? What does that kind of effortless action look like in everyday life? Speaking of effortless action, that reminds me of one of my favorite stories from the Zhuangzi. The butcher Ding.
Oh, yeah. The butcher whose knife never dulled.
Exactly. I mean, talk about finding flow. This guy's slicing and dicing for years, but his knife's still sharp as ever.
And it's such a perfect example of wu-wei in action, because when people asked him about it, what's your secret?
He's not bragging about some fancy technique or anything.
Bro, he's like, it's not me, it's the ox.
He's talking about seeing the spaces within the animal.
Moving in harmony with its natural structure.
It's not about forcing anything. It's about understanding,
Aligning yourself.
working with the natural order of things.
And that's where true mastery lies, according to Zhuangzi.
It really makes you think, what could we achieve if we approached everything like that?
Mm,
Our work, our relationships.
our whole lives, even. What if we stopped trying to force things and instead looked for those spaces, those natural rhythms?
It's a pretty powerful message. And you know another story that always gets me, the one about the guy who refuses the king's reward.
Oh, yeah. He's living in poverty, right?
And the king's like, hey, I want to give you wealth, status, a fancy title, the whole 9 yards. And the guy's like, nah, I'm good.
I'm happy as I am.
Can you imagine?
It really shows you what Zhuangzi valued: inner freedom, authenticity.
That guy knew that true happiness wasn't about what other people could give him. It came from within.
From staying true to himself, even if it meant turning down the king.
Which is such a relevant message, don't you think? I mean, we're constantly bombarded with messages about what will make us happy, what we should buy, achieve, strive for.
And Zhuangzi's over here saying, what if you already have everything you need?
What if true peace comes from looking inward, not outward?
Exactly. Aligning yourself with your own values, not someone else's idea of success.
Love it. And you know what else I love? The fable of the giant bird Peng. Such a vivid image.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
This bird is so massive that when it takes flight, its wings block out the sun.
It makes everything else seem so small, right?
It really puts things into perspective. What seems like an insurmountable obstacle to us, a strong wind, a tall mountain.
To Peng, it's nothing.
It's a good reminder that our perspective is just that,
Yep.
our perspective.
There's always a bigger picture.
And that sometimes a little humility is a good thing.
Absolutely. Being willing to see things from other points of view.
To expand our understanding. And, that's something I really appreciate about Zhuangzi. He tackled these big universal questions, but he did it with such creativity, such imagination. He used these stories, these fables, to make us really think about life, death, happiness.
And he wasn't afraid to be playful with it. He even talks about death, not as this scary ending, but like just moving from one room to another.
Right. It's a natural transition, a part of life.
He doesn't shy away from those big existential questions, but he approaches them with this sense of wonder, acceptance, even a touch of humor.
And that's what makes his philosophy so enduring. It's not about following a rigid set of rules. It's about finding your own path.
Living authentically.
Finding that effortless flow, even when the world feels chaotic.
And his ideas clearly resonated. I mean, he might not have been as popular as, say, Confucius, but his work had a huge impact.
Oh, for sure. For centuries, thinkers, poets, artists, they've all been inspired by Zhuangzi.
He offered a different way of looking at things, a different way of being in the world. And that's something we still crave today, don't we?
Absolutely. In a world that often feels so divided, so polarized, his message of interconnectedness, of finding harmony within ourselves and with nature,
It's a breath of fresh air.
it really is. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Zhuangzi, I'm curious, what are you taking away from it all?
What's resonating with you?
Is it a renewed appreciation for the simple things? A newfound courage to let go of those anxieties and embrace a more effortless way of being? Whatever it is, I think we can all learn a thing or two from Zhuangzi. He encourages us to look beyond the surface, to question our assumptions, and to find our own unique path to freedom and happiness. And who knows, maybe somewhere between those talking skulls and giant birds, you'll just find exactly what you're looking for.